Good evening once again from Rally headquarters in Cheltenham, where we're going to tell the story of the final day of this Network Q Rally of Great Britain. Behind me on the presentation stage here at Cheltenham Racecourse, some boisterous celebrations are greeting each of the finishers in this always demanding event. And the big names who suffered yesterday really underlined how tough the challenge can be. Most notable of those was Colin McRae, crashing out in the darkness of Haffron Forest, his much-hyped battle with Richard Burns finally over. Tommy Mackinnon might be world champion for 4 straight years, but after yesterday the Rally of Great Britain would remain an event he'd never won. And both Carlos Sainz and Didier Auriol would have the kind of embarrassing excursions that meant that Toyota would bow out of world rallying with nothing from the Rally of Great Britain. But contrast that with Richard Burns, winner of this event last year and taking a firm grip yesterday, driving with faultless precision in the forests of mid-Wales. So at the end of yesterday, it was Richard Burns with a significant 29-second lead over his Subaru teammate Juha Kankkunen. Marcus Gronholm, a splendid third in the Peugeot, then Rovanperä in the Seat. Mackinnon and Auriol had dropped too far off the lead, and McRae was gone, crashing out on the final stage of yesterday's second leg. It happened while our highlights programme was on the air, and even in the dark you could sense how dramatic the accident had been. This was the last action shot of McRae, powering through the second by Herrin stage, trying to close the gap to Richard Burns in a late surge, but his efforts were in vain. It was an accident which was made worse by hitting an abandoned Ford Escort left from the previous running of the stage. McRae out of the rally, and it's the third big accident that he and co-driver Nicky Grist have had to endure in the last 3 events.
Basically, Colin saw the car and just went left of it. Unfortunately, he should have gone right of it, and this is where we've ended up. It's pretty heavy. It doesn't look very pretty there.
So for McRae, the less glamorous side of World Championship rallying, a 5-mile trudge out of the stage. His World Championship season over after a very disappointing second half to the year. It left Richard Burns with a great chance to reinforce his claims to be the British #1. But this final day was more than just, well, the final day of the rally. It had 119 special stage miles. It represented more than half the total distance of the event. 7 stages in South Wales, including Resolven, stage 20, at close on 29 miles. This was the longest of the rally. A tough, tough day to test the front-running composure of Richard Burns. Tiff Needell and Mark James take us through the first action of the day.
Another 5:15 start saw the crews reach stage 16 just before dawn. As ever, spectators were ready and waiting, although one had rather more on his mind than where breakfast was coming from.
Well, Richard's done a sensational job. He was confident right from the start, but you know, we start the final day here in sort of South Wales and anything can happen. We saw what happened to Carlos last year, so I don't count my chickens.
But his young employee looked as though he hadn't a care in the world. Fastest on all but 2 of yesterday's 8 stages, Richard Burns was out to show that he's now very definitely Britain's #1 rally driver. Victory on the event, with Didier Auriol finishing 4th or lower, would also make Richard the runner-up to Tommy Mackinnon in the World Drivers' Championship, so there was still plenty at stake. Third quickest on stage 16, Burns and his co-driver Robert Reid were then fastest on both 17 and 18 and reached the day's first service area, having extended their lead to over 51 seconds. The battle for second place was a lot closer. 13.5 seconds were all that would split Juha Kankkunen and Marcus Gronholm after stage 18. Kankkunen and Juha Repo were slower than the Peugeot on the first pair of tests.
puncture that cost him 2 minutes on stage 18 dumped him to 11th. Having fixed the gearbox problems that dropped him to the bottom of the top 20, Francois Delacour was continuing his long fight back. And by the time he reached the day's first service, he was back up to 7th, just 2 seconds down on Mäkinen. The Skoda team was still producing a solid performance with their relatively new Octavia World Rally cars, and Bruno Thierry, making his debut for the team, was now 8th. 2 places behind the Belgian was his German teammate, Armin Schwarz. The meat in the Skoda sandwich was the Ford of Thomas Rodstrom, who was still finding his British rally baptism a bit of an uphill struggle, but at least he was keeping his focus on the road.
Number 5 has been significant in British motorsport before. After all, it produced a world champion in the 1990s. Richard Burns will have to wait until the next millennium for his chance, but after just 4 hours sleep, 3 stages, 2 fastest times, he was determined to remain in position 1.
There's no point to take it easy when Juha and Marcus are so close. Okay, we've got a bit more of a gap now, but still, I mean, these stages, there's only 4 left. They're all very long. They're all over sort of 15, 18 miles, something like that, and if they're anything like the last stage, there's quite a lot of fog and still quite muddy and slippery, so there's just plenty of things to catch you out.
If anything were to happen to Burns, Subaru had double cover. Juha Kankkunen was second, but looking over his shoulder for those chasing.
Not so easy yet, because Markus is quite close still and he's pushing very hard, so I have to try.
Are you pushing Richard at all, or have you been told to just ease back?
Yeah, I try to, but he's too fast.
Marcus Gronholm's Peugeot had lasted strongly into day 3, but what would the team do now? Settle for 3rd place or push for 2nd?
I don't know what they are going to say. I continue like this and then we will see.
But 3rd would be a good result, wouldn't it?
I think it's good, yes, it's good.
2nd would be better?
For sure, yes.
Gwyndaf Evans was running in the top 6 last night, but those problems in South Wales on the final morning had left him feeling rather flat.
Yeah, unfortunately we picked the puncture up on the last special stage, and we don't know why, but we lost 2 minutes.
Tommy Mäkinen's mechanics had just one aim, to give the world champion a chance of finishing an event he never does well in. But as Richard Burns pulled away from the Subaru garage, sister Jo and girlfriend Saffron watched on, like the team relaxed, and with just 4 stages to go, you could understand why.
So a solid start from Burns, stretching his lead to more than 51 seconds through the first 3 stages. From the overnight positions, Oriol has moved ahead of Tommy Mäkinen and into 5th. Gwyndaf Evans dropping back. And this was ahead of another long stage, Riola, close on 19 miles. Mark James continues the story.
Leg 3 was all about long stages, and Riola was one of the longest at nearly 19 miles. Richard Burns, though, continued the good work he'd started on the shortest, stage 17. For the 3rd time running, he set the fastest time, taking another 13 seconds off his teammate. The gap between the 2 Subarus was now 1 minute and 4 seconds.
Medium flame, 40, slow medium right, tightens, 40, right max, 150.
Kankkunen was 5th fastest on the stage. Subaru now on course for their 3rd 1-2 finish of the year, although this would be the first time Burns would have had the upper hand. 2nd quickest was Tommy Mäkinen, but he finished the stage with a sky-high engine temperature. Was it a faulty gauge or a cooked engine?
Huomasen miinuskirraa vähän suppu, heti oikein rytky. 8.
Behind the Mitsubishi, Skoda were more than happy just to have both Octavias in the top 10, but that was about to change. While Bruno Thierry and his co-driver Stefan Prevost would return to Neath in 7th place, Armin Schwarz and Manfred Heimer hit a gate post, ripping off a wheel and forcing the German pair to retire. The man who'd benefit most from Schwarz's retirement was Gwyndaf Evans, whose Seat was restored to the top 10. His teammate Harry Rovanpera now had one eye on a podium finish, but the Finn was only 3 seconds faster than the Welshman through Riola.
Rasante fondo en izquierda rápida más, acaba rasante fondo en izquierda, para rasante fondo en derecha rápida menos ras, se abre, acaba izquierda derecha rápida más.
Despite extensive pre-event testing, Toyota won't be ending their World Rally campaign with a win. Carlos Sainz was 4th quickest on the stage, but still 9th overall, while Didier Auriol was over 4 seconds slower than his teammate. The Frenchman returning to Nice still nearly a minute away from the podium finish he needs to finish 2nd in the World Championship. 3rd quickest on stage 19 was the Peugeot of Francois Delacour. 6th overall, and now on course to score 1 championship point, Delacour was flying. Sadly, so was his Finnish colleague, but in an altogether different direction. Around halfway through the stage, Marcus Gronholm was in 6th gear when Riola claimed another victim. Another horrendous accident, another destroyed car, but another unharmed crew. Like Sainz in San Remo and McRae in Australia, Gronholm and Timo Rautiainen climbed unscathed from the wreckage. It was, however, just the start of a short spell of bad news for the Finns, as Peter Slater explains from the Neath service area.
Tommy Mackinnon's Rally of Great Britain finished at the 2nd Neath services. The World Champions car has started overheating on stage 19, and despite the best efforts of the mechanics, it was obvious that the engine was sick and the medicine wasn't working. It was all very disappointing, but Tommy was putting on a brave face.
Well, it is not so important to score any more points. I came here to try to win, and of course already on first day we had some problem, and beginning of 2nd day yesterday we broke the damper and we lost so much time. Afterwards it was nothing to do anymore, and at the moment I'm not so disappointed.
Marcus Gronholm's a lucky man. As he watched film of his accident, he couldn't remember how many times he'd rolled the Peugeot.
Many times. When we thought now it stopped, it started again.
And you were just so pleased when it stopped completely?
Yes, and then out from the car and have a look where we are. Couldn't see anybody. 70 meters down maybe.
Are you completely unhurt? Are you okay?
Yes, we are okay.
And the absence of Armin Schwartz's Skoda at service was another reminder that the rally can bite even near the end. He too had crashed on stage 19.
The challenges fall away and Burns inches further ahead. His lead now 1 minute and 4 seconds. Rovanperä seemingly secure in 3rd after the dramatic exit of Marcus Gronholm. Francois Delacour now into that top 6. But still to come was the longest stage of the rally, Resolven.
19 stages down, just 3 to go, and the first of them the longest of all. Nearly 29 miles of treacherous forest tracks await the competitors. Indeed, these last 3 stages total 66 miles. There is still a quarter of the rally to run. But, however large his lead, Richard Burns simply seems to be unable to stop setting fastest times. This would be his 11th. Francois Delacour was just 2.5 seconds slower than the Flying Englishman, surprising his many critics who question his loose surface prowess, and moved himself up into 4th spot. Carlos Sainz was 3rd fastest over the stage, continuing to impress with his speed and ruining the 4 minutes he'd lost stuck in a ditch yesterday. He was now 7th. Harry Rovanperä's nerves must be beginning to jangle. His first ever World Championship podium beckons, one that would give Seat their 2nd third place of the year following Gardemeister's result in New Zealand. 4th fastest in Resolven, he still had a 50-second advantage over Delacour. Thomas Rodstrom was finally beginning to enjoy his Rally of Great Britain. After a couple of embarrassing offs this year, he was desperate not to make another silly error. Yet he was also keen to score his 3rd top 6 finish, and that was the position he now held. Auriol was only 6th fastest through the stage, 17 seconds slower than his Toyota teammate, and showing no signs of wanting to fight for 2nd in the championship table. Bruno Thierry now carries Skoda's dream of their first top 10 finish on his own, and a rock that deranged his suspension and dropped him to 8th was just what he didn't want. Steady Freddie Loix finally made it into the top 10, sadly only due to his teammates' demise. Outside the top order, battles for class victories raged on. Johnny Milner would end the day as second best Brit, a fantastic 11th overall in his Toyota Corolla on his World Rally Car debut. Martin Rowe took second in the front-wheel drive Formula 2 class as Renault claimed the world title. But Manxman Mark Higgins took the Rally of Great Britain honours, 15th overall in his Volkswagen Golf. Production Cup honours went to the Peruvian star, Ramon Ferreros, who came out top of the 60-plus entry in this class, finishing 22nd overall.
Burns now having stretched his lead to over 2 minutes. Mackinnon's exit now puts Delacour up to 4th for Ford. Radstrom in the other surviving Ford also into the top 6. 2 more stages remaining, but plenty of stage miles, starting with a further 19 miles back in Riola.
The rally's penultimate stage was a repeat of the 19-mile thrash through Riola Forest on the outskirts of Neath. The local spectators taking their fashion cues from the SAS. Fastest on stage 21 was Kankkunen, 11.8 seconds quicker than anyone else. The Subaru had hardly missed a beat. It was the Peugeot 206 of Francois Delacour which was second quickest. Delacour and co-driver Daniel Grataloup pulling away from fellow countrymen Didier Auriol and Denis Giraudet. Third quickest was the Ford Focus of Thomas Rodstrom and Gunnar Barth, although a flickering oil light was a worry. Fifth fastest and a comfortable third overall was Harry Rovanperä. Richard Burns was only 6th quickest, but didn't seem to be worried. Victory now surely a formality. But stage 21 would see the cruelest of luck for Toyota. Auriol forced out by a combination of a broken front wheel, a broken alternator belt and a broken water pipe. Then, adding insult to injury, Sainz also retired with suspension failure. The Spaniard can't be looking forward to next year's 3 days in Wales. Gwyndaf Evans was also a victim of stage 21. Engine failure near the finish, robbing Gwyndaf of an excellent result. And so to stage 22, always a tough finale for the event, the 17-mile Margam stage, a repeat of the test which saw Sainz's incredible last-minute retirement last year. 1999's victims included Francois Delacour, whose gearbox finally gave up the ghost almost within sight of the finish. An oil leak on Thomas Rodstrom's car was plugged by the crew at the stage start. Power steering fluid was then used to get the car through, but the Swede would finish 6th. 5th was the Mitsubishi of Freddie Loix, an unspectacular run, but another confidence-building result. 4th, a superb performance, was the Skoda Octavia of Bruno Thierry. Helped by the retirements on the last pair of stages, this was Skoda's best ever result on a round of the World Championship. Harry Rovanperä repeated Tony Gardemeister's 3rd place result in New Zealand. Making it 2 Finns on the podium, Juha Kankkunen finishing 2nd, securing 4th place in the Drivers' Championship. But, as on last year's rally and as he'd confidently predicted in our preview on Friday, Richard Burns made the victory look easy. His 3rd win of the year, his 2nd in succession, now must make Burns one of the clear favourites for the world title next year.
So for Richard Burns with co-driver Robert Reid, the 2nd straight win on the Network Q Rally of Great Britain. A very satisfying victory over his teammate Juha Kankkunen. A real boost for Harry Rovanperä with that 3rd place for Seat. Beyond that, a real shake-up to the leaderboard over the last couple of stages. Thomas Radstrom had problems. Evans and Auriol both went out. So Bruno Thierry was able to claim that 4th place for Skoda ahead of Loix and Radstrom. But the win for Richard Burns, the 3rd of his season, and winning back-to-back here in Britain and in Australia, meaning that Burns finishes the season 2nd overall in the Drivers' Championship behind Tommy Mäkinen. Celebrations are plenty at the finish in Cheltenham and the final service ahead of that.
The agony came before the ecstasy as Richard Burns' mechanics waited at the final service in Bridgend. Yards away, it was just despair for Toyota. Both Sainz and Oriol out on this, the team's last ever World Championship event. Pride at Seat, Harry Rovanperä not part of the team's plans for next season, bringing home the Cordoba in third place.
That is best result for me, and of course this year is so difficult also, and I need that result is many times before, but anyways that is very good, is coming in the last rally in the season.
Some say Juha Kankkunen never shows any emotion, but he was pleased with his own second place and full of praise for his teammate.
No, he is fantastic. I mean, Richard has grown up a lot, doesn't do a lot of mistakes and drives very, very fast. I was trying to catch him, yesterday, but I mean, he was still a little bit bigger all the time and couldn't keep up just that speed on this rally. He knows this rally very well and he's specialist here, but good drive from him.
But the real joy was for those closest to Richard Burns. His girlfriend and his dad. That's my boy, and he's a winner.
And at the end of it all, a bit of a struggle with the champagne, but then the traditional soaking with Harry Rovanperä, especially enjoying his moment on the podium. Great record in this event from Burns. In his last four, he's been third, fourth, first, and now first again. And now runner-up also in the World Championship. And the celebrations will continue through tonight. Robert Reid, Richard Burns, congratulations. Runner-up in the World Championship. You must feel like world number one at the moment, I should think.
I'm pretty happy. I mean, I don't feel like the number one because obviously still Tommy's done a fantastic job, but the second half of this year has just gone so well for us, and I don't know what else to say. It's just been such a good job by the team. Everybody's done a hell of a lot of work. There's a lot of clever guys back at ProDrive, and all their efforts have been rewarded.
What was it ahead of this event? There was a lot in the press that you felt that you still had to prove, and what do you feel that you have underlined here?
I think, to be honest, a lot of it was built up. I mean, what I'm doing away from Britain in the World Championship can be seen anyway, so maybe it needed to be proven to the people who are writing the things in the national press, but as far as myself and Colin are concerned, we go into every single rally trying to win. And this is, okay, it's not exactly like all the others because we want to win it more, but we still both want to win.
You were quite keen, though, to beat Colin McRae in a head-to-head that lasted all 3 days. You didn't quite get that opportunity.
No, I mean, when Colin was going, he had, obviously, he didn't have full confidence in the car or his tyres or something because, everybody knows he's going to be quick in Wales, but he didn't put the times in. And when you're driving on this kind of surface, very, very slippery, quite unpredictable, you need to be 100% confident with yourself, with the car and with the tyres, and he obviously didn't have that feeling.
Robert, were you 100% confident the last 3 days? It looked absolute perfection from our position, what Richard was doing.
Yeah, it all went very well. I mean, a lot of people said in the first day you're not leading, but we've never led on the first day, and I think now the last 3 years we've led after the first forest stage in Wales, so from that point of view it all went according to plan, and I think it was all quite relaxed. Okay, we had a bit of a scary moment with a small fire yesterday, but apart from that it all went to plan.
You left all the hard work to him on that occasion. He was the one with the fire extinguishers, taking all the risks. That's what co-drivers are all about, isn't it?
Yeah, only one extinguisher, that's the problem.
Now, what are your thoughts for next year? It's going to be a tremendous World Championship year next year. We've floated the thought that perhaps you go into it as favourite.
I don't know about that. I mean, my job now is to get on with all the work we have to do for next year's car. I'm going to take the same approach next year as we did this year. We've come closer than we thought we would, for sure. And the only thing we can do is work to try and get the best possible results on each individual rally. and obviously the more points you get on each individual rally, the better chance you have of becoming champion. So that's what we've got to do.
Feels as good as last year, doesn't it?
It feels better in many ways, actually. It feels really good.
Well, we will pull all the action together. We'll tell the whole story of the last 3 days. Early on in Sunday Grandstand this coming weekend, an event won by Richard Burns and co-driver Robert Reid, and that is the Network Q Rally of Great Britain. I hope you've enjoyed our coverage. We're set in Cheltenham for Burns Night once again after 3 days of tremendous action.